But what is for sure in this idea is that it would change the way journalists have to work and think in a manner that would really be revolutionary, and
we're already in the revolution.
Probably scares the shit out of many journalists.
Yeah.
So you teach journalism. How do you, when you talk about these things, these are as long as there's not that many big media companies trying out things like that. I mean, there's a couple of trials like the New York Times or the Guardian, or but it's usually it's not really a thing that they take very seriously. So how do you teach your students for this new time?
Not very well, because you know, I can give them the theory, but I think that I want my students to push the definitions, and we don't have a structure, a laboratory to do that. Right? They come in wanting to emulate the companies where they hope to get jobs. And I teach entrepreneurial journalism, so they'll invent new forms, and they're doing that. That's a step in the right direction. But that's more about the business model. I think we have to have more laboratories about the form to figure that out. We're doing one. The New York Times started a blog called The Local, covering neighborhoods, one neighborhood in New York, one in New Jersey. We took over the New York one at the school. The students are doing that now. Their job, their reflex, is to go write stories for the New York Times. The New York Times' reflex is to edit everything to make it into the New York Times. You don't have to stop them, right? We have to tell them their job is to recruit people in the community to help them report on themselves. And that's an entirely new skill set, right? And we haven't figured it out yet. We're constantly trying to figure it out. It's very hard to do this, so we're only beginning.
Actually, I imagine that it's even maybe more work than working as a journalist with a more or less fixed set of things that you have to do. If I look at our website, caring for the community is one of the most time-consuming things that you can do for the website. So, considering, I don't know, you have about 30.
So caring for the community, what does that usually mean?
It usually means reading,
right,
listening, and
getting rid of the bad guys.
And reacting, basically. And often we hear that it's really something that journalists would like to do, but they have to take a decision whether to write the next story or to care for the community. And in the ideas that you post are even going further than that, because you have to communicate even more.
Right, except that I think that it makes the job more efficient. Right, the problem is, again, we finished our work, now you're allowed to comment on it. You're mad at us, you're going to yell at us, we don't like you very much when you yell at us, and it makes the relationship worse. Right? But the relationship is what's wrong. If the relationship were more collaborative, it would also be more productive, more helpful, make us more efficient. Right? Help me do this story better, because it's going to help everybody. And I think people will actually do that. So I actually think that in the long run, it could make the journalist's job easier.
Now, Marcus Beckedahl just on another panel said that this is reality already for bloggers. It's a thing that's been done for for such a long time now, and the big old fat media, they're just slowly realizing what's going on out there in the web. They still see it as out there. So are big media a thing of the past?
Some of them, sure. Yeah. Because I spent 12 years. I spent my whole career on newspapers and magazines. I spent 12 years in my last job before I became a teacher doing nothing and lathering. With a newspaper company, and I worked very hard, and we got them to a point where at some point, I thought that there was going to be an orderly transition. Inauguration day, when the print president hands off to the digital president, and off we go to the future. Right? I realized that was my assumption of my work. We're just trying to get you there to, do this. I think it was, I now know it was very naive of me. That the problem is, the big institution is too big for a small world. When we did work on new business models for news at CUNY, which you can all see at newsinnovation.com, the models are there. You can overlook. It's very American-centric, obviously, but there may be lessons for here. The models themselves are at newsinnovation.com/models. the first thing that became apparent was that if a paper dies, I'm not trying to kill a paper, I love papers, but if we see the waste of it, if the Boston Globe dies, what replaces the big, old, dumb, slow newspaper company is not a big, new, smart newspaper company. We're already seeing the ecosystem of many players emerge. And so the one company will be replaced by hundreds of companies, operating under all kinds of different motives and means and business models, and ideally operating collaboratively in networks in terms of both content and revenue, so that their value rises. And so the question is, can the big company operate in the new small world? In Washington, D.C., Politico has been up the nose of the Washington Post as a new political site and publication, started by former Washington Post people. Now they're going to start Politico local, covering Washington Post with about Washington area with 24 people, working collaboratively with the community. So the question is, the Washington Post, which has a newsroom of 750 people, a staff of, I don't know, somewhere probably approaching 2,000 people total, can it possibly shrink down to the size of Politico before Politico grows up? No. Will it kill the Washington Post? I hope not. I think the Washington Post is a wonderful paper, in some ways better than the New York Times. We need what you have in Germany of multiple voices across the country and multiple perspectives. We risk losing that. But I don't, if I were Catherine Weymouth, the head of the Washington Post, I don't know what the hell I'd do. Because the cost of shrinking is too painful. It's too expensive. It's too painful for the job loss. It's too painful for the cultural change. That's why I teach entrepreneurial journalism.
Do you think it still makes sense to even talk to these big publishing houses? Because it sounds like there's basically no chance to find a new role that gives these publishing houses the same revenues than they used to have, and what they're used to.
They won't have the same revenue, but I mean, as has been pointed out to me at Zeit Online, last I knew, Zeit circulation was headed up. Yeah, so it has power. It has a real ability. Now, this is a problem. It's not a problem. With the circulation going up, it's hard to see the down, right? But I think one should forecast that anyway, right? To prepare for it, to know what it is. And then to ask, what is the strength of that big company? Well, Zeit has incredible strengths. Right? Its brand has incredible strengths. Its voice, its knowledge of the past and how to do things. Its ability to share that reputation with others it finds and trains and makes good, right? So I think that there's an opportunity for the big company to nurture the new world. To start, I asked yesterday, I ask always, why has blogging not taken off in Germany the way it has in the US? I still don't have a good answer, but I have 10 answers that I hear. But I think there's an opportunity still to create new blogs or entrepreneurial news ventures that the big company can help support, and that becomes its crutch for the future. And those new little ventures